I won't look while you do your intro.
Ah, shit. It's all good. It's all good. Welcome to the... I can't even get through my opening.
I'm a bad guest.
All right. That's my guest, Kelly Sullivan. We're going to get to her in a second because welcome to the Movement MFG Podcast, where I say the clothing industry is life, and we talk about just that, the clothing industry and life. Today, we are going to talk about translating your designs and inspirations and how they come to life. All right, cue the tunes. All right, we're starting up. As you already know, I have Kelly Sullivan here. Kelly, say hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello,
Okay,
everyone.
if anyone doesn't know any type of backstory of anything, Kelly is my partner in crime, started GTS Clothing with myself, and also then when we expanded to Movement MFG, basically since day one has been on the ride. So Kelly handles all of our design, from product design to branding, as far as like graphics, aesthetics, colors. I mean, any like graphics for website, graphics for marketing, product design as far as patterns, colors. I mean, am I missing anything? What else is there?
I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. We say design, but it encompasses pretty much everything.
Pretty much everything that's like visual, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the only thing is that I don't do is sew.
Yeah, because that's my job. Because she sits there and says, "This is what I want it to look like," and then I go and try to make it look like that. And
yeah,
that's
exactly.
And that's basically what it is. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty the dynamic, because I would never be able to do what she does. So the fact that I can sit there and then I think do what my strengths are of just like bringing it to life is a great partnership. All right. So, I mean, let's start off. How are you doing today?
Great. Yeah.
Good.
I could use a little bit more coffee, but
Doing more
it's the end of the
coffee.
day, so.
That is true. We are coming to you from the MFG offices here at the end of the day. We just got done. I mean, we did some client work, doing some patterns, doing some samples. We also, we have under MFG, we have our GTS clothing line. So we've actually been doing a lot with that because we have a whole release coming up tomorrow with a photo shoot, all that stuff. So there's a lot to orchestrate with that. So yeah, we've been pretty busy here. It's kind of been a whirlwind. So let's start off with when we basically start working with a Movement MFG client. A lot of times it starts with they send us a sketch, or sometimes they're like, "Oh, I have this product." Whether sometimes it's from like it's like a 10-year-old product that they're like, "Gosh, I just love. I wear this over and over and over again." Or sometimes they're like, "Oh yeah, I got this in the store the other day. This is like really what I like." And so they come to us with kind of coming from either one of these directions, and they try to portray their inspiration. So Kelly, when we basically get a sketch, say what is kind of like the first step from there to be able to translate it?
Okay, so I think there's a couple different things that we should mention first, is that when people come to us, you can come to us with any level of experience. So we have some people that come to us that have a fashion design background. Some people come to us, they already have a pattern made. Some people have an idea, and that's it. And I think what is beneficial for the people that come to us is like, we're willing to work with you whatever level that you're on, because we started at a level where we had nothing and didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So
I always say like, "Oh, we've been in your shoes,"
Yeah,
I tell
exactly.
everybody that.
And everyone through the process, whatever stage you're at, whatever level of experience you're at, like we've been at that level. So we can work with you wherever you're at. So if someone brings us a sketch, there's many different places where that person can be. It can be they're a fashion designer and their sketch looks amazing and it looks like something that you would see on TV, or it could be like a drawing that is pretty hard to interpretate and doesn't really seem that great. But what was your question again? Sorry.
Like, what's kind of the starting point? Step? You know, like say someone gives us a sketch, like what's kind of like our first steps with that sketch?
Yeah. Well, what we normally try to do is look at their drawing or their pattern or whatever it is and kind of try to relate it to something that we've already done before.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we're kind of like dissecting it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it doesn't have to be like the same type of product, but if it's like some sort of tank top or if it's some sort of t-shirt, like what other t-shirts have we done?
Yeah.
And where can we, start making this blueprint from something that kind of already exists and we know that it works.
Yeah.
Obviously it requires a lot of modification, but you have to start from somewhere, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's kind of like that foundation where, say it's a tank top, but say it's a tank top that's like really complex or, and say they want which is a whole nother thing, but say they want their sample size and small, and that's the size that we're basing everything on. We're going to go back to like a basic tank top, almost like as like our foundation, and then be able to sit there and make modifications, and then kind of begin the pattern work. But you're right. It does start with, finding the almost like the simple product that's in that category.
Yeah, totally. And I think what we're trying to do for these people is we're trying to construct their product for them. We're not trying to, give them another drawing back. We're trying to make it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like when you say deconstructing it, you kind of have to deconstruct it so that you get the basis of the product, the most important parts of the product, so you can understand how it goes together.
Yeah.
And then from there, work on how do we incorporate their details that make their product different.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I mean, what the other side of this was, basically bringing that actual product that is your inspiration that is already on the market, say, and bringing it to us. And then from there, we actually have that foundation in hand. So my plan was to kind of quickly talk about that too. But obviously I think that, the next step of from this sketch, when we start to sample it, I think the biggest thing is that it shows it will basically, how do I want to say it? It will show your designs in life to whether they will translate or not, because a lot of times you're sketching one thing, but when it's sitting nice on the body, say, in your sketch, but then when we go to make the sample of it, it doesn't translate that way. And a lot of that times, that comes down to whether, the fabric stretch or, maybe we're not working with stretch fabrics, but like the cuts and maybe the angles aren't correct and so on. And that's obviously something that we have to work on. But I mean, what do you think is like the biggest, I don't want to say like reason for that, but I mean, what's the challenge with that?
Well, I think more accurately, it's like, what is the challenge on bringing people's sketches to life? Well, that's kind of what you were just saying. So I think the thing is like, you can draw whatever you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go together, or we can make it go together, but it's not going to,
it might not come.
I'm trying to think of an example.
It might not be visually the way that you wanted it to, because like you can sketch something, but then in order to when we then go to sew it, or when we go to do the technical design part and the pattern and things like that, we have to make sure, that like the way it's constructed, that we're able to do that. Because there's a lot of times we have a sketch, and I'll sit there and I'll look at the sketch, and I'll kind of make notes and send it back to the designer and be like, and I'm really just, again, going back to our original thing, that I'm like kind of like dissecting it, because I'm like, this right here, we're not going to be able to create with the type of stitching. It's like, oh, we can do that stitch, but that stitch is not going to hold up over time. So like that type of stuff.
Okay, I think what we're trying to say is that when someone brings us a drawing of something that they want made, there's going to have to be compromise along the way with the person designing it, because things aren't always going to be able to be manufactured in the way that they're drawing.
I think that's a great way of saying it.
Based on their price point and based on their end design. So if you're trying to design something and functionality is not that important to you, then you have a little bit more flexibility. It just depends on what is the most important thing to the designer? Is it that it is a functional piece? Is it that the design comes out exactly the way they drew it?
Yep.
Or is it that they want to stay in a certain price point? They want the price that they sell it to their customers at.
Yep.
Is that the most important thing?
Yeah.
And then we have to work backwards, because
it's so funny you say that. I talked about this in like 2 episodes ago about working backwards.
yeah, because I mean, someone draws something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be impossible to make. There's a million different ways to make anything, you know, but when you're making them in small quantities, or you're doing a production run of these things, like, is that actually feasible? Or are you trying to design a one-off product, you know? Like, I think that is kind of where we are.
I think the word that hit it was compromise, because there is, I guess, you know, this goes even deeper, because yes, there's compromise to, like, okay, how you want it to look. You know, like, can we actually bring that to life with the stitching, the functionality, everything you just said? But then, yeah, like, compromise I mean, it's not even talking about pricing and so on and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like all together, I guess, now that we're talking about it. But that word, I think, pretty much sums it up. Is, you know, do you want that functionality, or are you looking for performance, you know, and so on.
Yeah, and I think it definitely depends on where your background is too, because if you're coming to us with an idea of something that you want to design, those type of people are normally more open to compromise, because they're not like trying to get into the nitty-gritty of how things are constructed. Even I don't sew. So sometimes when I'm designing something, you know, it's not always possible because of the way that things have to be sewn together and the amount of time that we want to be able to manufacture it in. Mm-hmm. And so it's like problem solving. How can we get this to go together in a way that doesn't compromise the look that much, but still makes it feasible to sew? Yeah,
totally. And that's why I especially on, if anybody follows us on Instagram, whenever I post, most of the time I'm stressing about technical design. And I feel like where I think the industry kind of, you know, has a disconnect is that I've said this in past podcast episodes, is that we have some, you know, you have your pattern maker, okay? And I always say, like, based on how the person's making your pattern, does that person know how efficient that is going to be on the production floor?
Things can always go together, but it's not necessarily going to be efficient, which makes your price more expensive. We're going to charge you more money to make it. Then you have to sell it for more money. So you kind of have to figure out, like, what do you care about that? And that's why if you don't have a background in it and you just want to bring a product to life, you have a brand vision, but you don't have any experience in manufacturing or sewing, to us, that's fine. But there's certain things that, like, you use certain stitches for certain pieces of clothing and for certain parts of a body, and some of those cost more than others. So
I mean, it's guidance and understanding, like what I'm finding over and over again, it's just really understanding their needs and, like, what's important to them. You know, like, is price the most important thing, or is making the best possible product at any cost the most important thing? You know, and that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum. Okay, so we could talk all day about that, but what about, and this is kind of like, we were just saying, like, this is kind of like the unspoken thing in the industry. And I can tell you right now, I know of a handful, so I bet you everyone is doing this, but going and getting inspiration from others and actually taking their product and using that as your baseline for your product inspiration. Yeah,
I mean, I think everyone is doing that. Everyone is taking someone else's product and using it as a jumping off point. So they're like, I want this, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when you're starting out, you don't want to admit that that's what you're doing to other people. You saw a product, you really like it, you want to make it your own, but a little bit different. That's actually helpful to us.
Yeah.
We don't care. Bring us the thing so we can look at it, we can dissect it, and we can help make you a better product.
It fast tracks the process in a way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, you know, or anything, like bringing types of material that you like, or bringing a shirt that you already own and saying, I want to make something different out of this similar material. How can you help me with this?
That's so true, because then you can sit there and actually touch and feel what they're looking for versus someone trying to describe it to you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so obviously when you get through the sampling process, it gets from sketch or, sample to actual, product finalized and things like that. And then, before you're pretty much ready to go, while kind of, I guess prior to production, but then there's tagging, and this is another little nitty-gritty piece to the process that I think is kind of overlooked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like the last step. So you've designed your whole product with us. You're ready to go to production. You've decided, how many small, medium, and large you want, what color you're doing. Everything is set to go. And no one ever thinks about how they're finishing this.
Yeah.
Do you have a logo? Do you have an inside tag that you want? Do you have an outside tag you want on it? How are you selling these? Are you selling them in a store? Are you selling them online?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to have packaging? Do you have hang tags? Any of this stuff? And it's an afterthought, which is, well, to me, backwards because I do a lot of graphic design. But I mean, it pulls your whole product together for sure. And like, you're not going to design an amazing product that you're super proud of and then just like print out a piece of paper and like staple it onto your product. Absolutely not. You just took your legit product and made it look like it was like,
yeah. And I mean, you spend all this time, time, effort, I know on our end, it's a lot of time and effort to, again, bring it to life with all this. And I'm sure even with like the inspiration and, the front lines of it. Yeah. And then it's just like a little kind of step that's
and I mean, we're here to help people with that, but at the same time, like, you need a logo. You're like, what is your brand name? You need a logo, and also, do you have an idea? Like, you send us a picture of, go to any store. What's your favorite store? Go there. Check out how they're labeling their clothes and get ideas. Send us a picture of someone else and say, I want my clothes to have a tag that looks like this.
Yeah. And I think, and too, like I think where basically our process slows down when we work with clients is when they kind of don't know exactly what they want,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Because if they don't know what they want, then we sure as hell don't know. And that's going to be even tougher for us to make any type of product exactly what they want if they don't even know what they want.
And possibilities are endless. So, do the research first, decide what you want, and honestly just get inspiration from other people. Yeah. What do you like and what do you don't
totally
like?
Fine,
and that I feel like will very quickly like narrow your path down,
Yeah. And so we'll say, we get through the tagging process, through all that, and then you're kind of presenting your products, which are kind of a collection. So let's talk about kind of like the importance of a collection. I guess let's even take a step back and be like, what is a collection?
Yeah, I mean, even for us at GTS,
what makes up a collection, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a seasonal collection, like especially if you're just starting out. Let's say you're releasing 5 pieces. I just think that you need to have an idea of how all these 5 pieces are tied together. Mm-hmm. So that way when you're presenting it to someone, a customer, you're posting pictures of it on Instagram, it's all cohesive and there's a clear message that you're trying to put out there. Your message doesn't have to be something super obvious like a saying printed on a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. But it has to be like, are you selling like what we do, activewear? Are you doing bathing suits? Are you doing, casual clothing? And what is it that ties it all together? So are you using similar shades of color? Like, do you have a color palette?
Yep.
If you don't have a color palette, do you have one type of fabric that you're using across the collection that kind of makes it cohesive? Are you doing one style but many different colors? Are you coming out with like a product and doing a bunch of colors? Or what is it that brings everything together? You're not just going to come out with 5 totally random different products because and here's another point. A lot of times people are designing for themselves, which I think is fine. A lot of times people are designing because they found a problem or they really like something and it's not already out there. So that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. But choose 5 things that go together, so that when you're marketing it and you're bringing it to life, it makes sense to your future customers. You're not going to come out with a bathing suit and also come out with a cargo jacket.
Yeah,
Like,
and it makes it
what?
more appealing almost when, like, subconsciously it makes it more appealing when it all goes together.
Yeah, it feels more complete. Even if you only have 3 items, but they're 3 things that go together.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And you could have 2 products that are available in 3 colors.
Yeah.
And you're obviously targeting a very specific person. Or you could have, you know, a guy's and a girl's variation of something, but they come out in the same color so that everything is cohesive. I think what happens sometimes is when people get caught up in the idea that they can work with us because we do such small minimums, that they have a million ideas, and then they pick their 5 favorite things or whatever they are, and they want to bring them to life, but they don't relate to each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, be realistic with your timelines too. So, I mean, with GTS, we're kind of really flexible because we have our whole manufacturing facility,
Yep.
you know, right outside these doors. And activewear is, besides colors and stuff like that, it's year round. You know, like if you're going to wear a sports bra, you're going to wear it in the winter and in the summer.
Yep.
You know, like people have leggings forever, you know, like they're going to wear it all year round. But if you're coming out with a dress, or if you're coming out with a t-shirt or a pair of shorts, be realistic with your timeline and when is it going to come out and when do you plan to release it? Because if you're going to release a t-shirt line in the middle of winter, when are you doing your photos? All, you know, just
actually, and that's another thing to think about is, yeah, like when you're doing, you know, in the wintertime, say up in the north, you know, and you're kind of like ahead of schedule though, you know, getting everything done, but still it's cold out. Like, forget about doing t-shirt in this, you know, t-shirt pictures in the snow.
Yeah, what kind of budget are you working with? Do you need to go on vacation to take the photos?
Need to travel to a tropic place
Yeah.
as a business expense to
get
get
that
some
tax write-off.
to get some nice photos and warm weather on the beach. Oh, that sounds good right about now.
Yeah, I could go for that.
We've been battling the cold up here nonstop. I feel like more days than not, I'm pushing snow off my car in the morning, or chipping away at ice.
Yeah, ice is a big one.
How are you dealing with the cold?
Honestly, I hate the cold. I don't mind the snow, but I hate the cold. So like yesterday was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't that cold. It was snowing. Like, bring on the snow, but please, the week where it was like 1 degree out for a whole week.
Yeah. Well,
I was in a dark place.
Or
that's
in the
for sure.
negatives. I mean, in negative, it was like -10. We even got to like -20. I mean, bundle up. All right. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Very, very insightful.